So do you know what else happened in the year 2000?
uh, Outside of Lego or within the context of Lego?
If I said outside of Lego, where would you go with that?
I don't know. I was in
Oh, okay.
fourth grade in the year 2000, so fourth and fifth, fourth grade. So, yeah, I don't know where I'd be going with that one.
I was in kindergarten. Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We are your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are taking a step back in time and looking at the year 2000 in Lego. But before we do that, West, guess what? I have a question for you.
What's that?
What did you build this week?
Well, Grinch, I had another goose egg for building, but as it happens when you're kind of in a dry spell, if you will, if when it rains, it pours. And today I bought slash received a few new Lego sets, so I
Oh,
want to shout that
snap.
out real quick. Yeah, so it's exciting. The first thing I need to shout out friends of the podcast and my classmates, Nick and Nicole, who are big Lego fans, and they bought the new Spider-Man CMF series, and
Nice.
they bought a couple of the 6-pack boxes, hoping to get as many of them as possible, and ended up having some duplicates. So they said, "We'll just give them to Ian." So I got
Who's
them, and
Ian?
what's that?
Who's Ian?
Oh, that's right. Well, they know me by another name, so but they ended up giving him to West.
What? I know that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they did that. So that was very kind of them.
Leaking live on the air. This just in.
There was 3 of them in there, and that was really fun because the 3 of them that are actually in the series are the Cowboy Spider-Man, which is a really unique one. The Spider-Man from like the Indian Spider-Verse series, and then kind of like the techie Spider-Girl. And the techie Spider-Girl has some really interesting translucent like leg pieces and arms and stuff. So that makes me wonder if our ghost of Obi-Wan ghost will eventually happen, even after Lego had said it wouldn't, because we are it's totally doable at this point. I just don't see why they couldn't. So I think it's time for us to get a Force Ghost. So
I myself have picked up a few, all but one of the Spider Verse CMFs. I was, we're selling our house, so we were showing it last weekend, and just needed to go kill some time. So what better thing to do than go look for some Legos? So we were at Walmart and Target, and I used my minifigure scan app and
yeah,
got the complete set except for one. I'm still missing one. And what a great app. For those that don't know, it's just called Minifig Scan, and you can use it to scan the barcodes with your camera, and it'll tell you exactly what's in there. And then you can actually like add it to the collection, so then it also keeps track of what you have. So it's a really easy way. You don't have to remember anything. It just keeps track of all of it. So you can even hold multiple boxes together and it'll scan three of them, and it'll use augmented reality or whatever to put the image over the barcode. So it's
it's
a great
really cool.
app. Yeah.
I'm actually using it on the CMF as you were talking about it, and it's kind of cheating. To be
So take four of them, hold them together, and do it, because you can scan all four at the same time. So like you can you can be super lazy and fast with it and just be like, there you go. Isn't that cool?
That's so wild. And
I was picking up a prescription from CVS, and like I never buy Lego at CVS because it's always like they mark it up.
yeah.
And but they had CMS there, and it was the last series, so there was obviously the Wolf Pack CMF, and
Oh,
so
yep,
I
you had to search
I
for it.
went. It was a brand new box, so I just was grabbing stacks of 4 and just turning them and just scanning all 4 at the same time. I
Do
was
you
that
remember
jerk.
back in the day? And I totally get their move away from plastic, and I commend Lego for that. But when they had the plastic cases, wraps, if you will, like they did for the poly bags, and it was a custom, there were some people who would weigh them, and they'd weigh them to like the 100th decimal place.
Which you can do with the boxes.
Right. And like that's not a bad way to go, right? I mean, there's some variance
The
there.
challenge with the boxes now is that it's glued, so there's a little bit more variance.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about that. But the old way to do it was to feel in the bag for
Back in my day.
for your, whatever you were looking for. And so you would always try to find, for example, if your CMF came with a surfboard, that was a pretty easy piece to kind of feel around the bag for. And once you found the surfboard, you knew who you had, right? So, I mean, it was kind of a skill and an art, and it was fun to kind of sit there and talk to people as you're kind of like sifting.
What are you looking for?
Right.
I'm looking for, Hermione, whatever. And here you go.
Yeah,
I can't.
but there was still
I
a
can't tell you
chance
how many times I found it for somebody.
there was a chance you were still kind of wrong too. So like at the same time, it was still very exciting to be like, man, I think this, like, I'm pretty certain this is it. But like, unless there was like a dead giveaway, it was so that, anyways, that was kind of a fun. So I do miss that about the CMF series. Still love the CMF.
I don't. This app
really?
is just so much easier. Yeah, because what would really sucked is that Target, they'd always leave them up front as just like an impulse purchase, and I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna go take like the whole thing off the spool here and just sit here just feeling bags like
and someone's like trying to check out like around you. You're like standing there, and you're like, go around, please.
Yeah, like please, I need a moment.
Yeah.
So
nice.
It's a lot easier to just grab it and scan it and move on in your life. But
yeah, sometimes I just grab 2 or 3, but you always run the risk of getting a duplicate. So
yeah.
Well, the next things I got, Grinch, I got a poly bag, and I don't normally do this, and it was a little bit of an impulse, but it was one of the Bluey poly bags, and it's a $5 poly bag in the 4+ line.
Bro said, I don't normally do this, but you've been eyeing that Bluey poly bag since 5 years before it was announced.
Well, I forgot that they even made the Bluey poly bag. And so I was looking at some of the sets, and I was like, oh, I don't really like the 4+ series because their parts are so big, and my daughter's not quite old enough to be playing with the 4+ sets. And so I wanted a Bluey, but I didn't want to have to deal with the shenanigans of, buying a huge set that I didn't really like. So anyways, quick reminder that thing is out there, and if you can get it for even less than $5, which is what I bought mine for, that'd be a heck of a steal.
Do it.
And there's no big pieces in this one, or overly big pieces. So, and then the last one I got, and I'll be brief, it's one that I think it'll surprise you a little bit, although I did mention it, was the One Piece cafe, or like tiki bar.
Nice.
Windmill Village Hut is what it's called. It is basically a tiki bar, and that's what I intend it to be in my Lego city. So didn't really get it. I'm not necessarily a One Piece fan, but I really liked the kind of tiki bar vibes that it was giving off. So,
is the floor going to be sticky? Because then it's not a tiki bar.
I don't know if I could build that into the Legos. So.
Oh, you can.
Oh, well, there you go.
Do you remember how you took my beloved clone troopers as a child and painted on them?
Acetone and some ABS plastic.
I'm just saying.
No, I was gonna say though that like I think this one has like a really great. It's got kind of like a thatched roof on the top of it, and then I has a kind of a really fun vibe on the inside. And if you were to take those like stone kind of facade faces from like the Indiana Jones temple that they did, you could put maybe like one of them in there kind of as like a tiki, sort of like an Easter Island kind of or reference in your tiki kind of bar. And I think that would be totally on brand. So anyways, yeah. So I haven't built them yet, but that's what I'm
But
building
you
this week.
own them, and
I
that's the hard part.
built it. I own it.
So, just a quick PSA for everybody. We are taking a week break. So this will be out on Monday, the 22nd. We will not have an episode on Monday, September 29th. So we will see you in October after this. But with that out of the way, West, I, as the listeners know, am moving. So it's a little hard to be building Lego. My Lego's packed up, but I got my Black Pearl in the mail with the couple gift with purchases. So that's all packed up and ready to go. And I've been working on my digital stuff with my Lord of the Rings mocks. But I've been enjoying Lego Masters Australia. Season 5 is finally on Tubi. For us in the United States, that comes out like 2 years after it airs, which is really funny because they actually take a lot of the challenges and they use them in the US version. So I don't know if it's, I mean, like, hey, if you're going to be on the US, version of it, maybe you should figure out get a VPN and watch the Australian version to get ahead on some of the challenges, because they had like the River Falls, which they did this year on it. So they do some repeat challenges. They did the is it Lego, is it brick challenge where they had to make something, and kind of the noir vibe. But it's All Stars, or they're calling it Grandmasters. So they've got a lot of people returning from previous seasons, which has been really
Right.
fun.
This one had
And
like American teams in it too, right? Or there was
nope, this is just
okay.
all the Australian ones.
Okay.
Yep. And it's, we talked about kind of how the American version tries to have their kind of drama and gimmicks, but this one they're doing it for the golden brick. But what they're doing is the first 3 episodes have been just 3 challenges. Nobody gets eliminated, and they're giving them a total score for the build. And the best average of score actually wins.
The golden brick.
Golden brick. Yeah.
Okay.
After the first 3 episodes. So that's, I won't say who, I won't say what, but that's really cool in my mind to kind of build a sub challenge in like that. That's not just about like forced drama and stuff like that.
Kind of a refreshing take too. I mean, we've seen it kind of flip flop with Lego Masters, where that first episode they either do eliminate or don't eliminate somebody.
Yeah.
And they've now eliminated more than they haven't eliminated. But it always seems nice to kind of give everyone. We've mentioned how hard this, it doesn't look maybe hard, but I think it's probably very hard to compete on that show to some extent. And
not that it doesn't look hard, but I think you sit there and you're just like,
it's
oh,
easy
I could
to
build something better. Oh, I did. And you're not factoring in that you're sitting there taking a break and walking away for a day and coming back to your build and in the comfort of your home, and don't have a giant clock on the wall that's counting down.
Yeah. Every time you go pee, you're not like, oh my gosh, I'm losing time. So yeah, I think having that kind of intermediate or beginning stage where you're just kind of getting everyone a chance to get on their feet and then see the culmination of 3 challenges worth of builds, I think probably sets the playing field a lot more than what we see, which is where, generally a team kind of makes a mistake early on and they just can't recover from it. So
yeah. So that's what I've been up to. I've been enjoying that. Looking forward to that new season. Highly recommend it. But you know what else is exciting, West?
Some exciting Lego news?
Not this week, because there is no news. No, West, why don't you take us through the light news week that we've got?
Exciting Lego news.
Well, Grinch, you've already spoiled it, but yeah, we did not get a lot of Lego news this week after coming off all the reveals last week and the teaser for Star Trek. We had a lot of great news last week. This week, it's been pretty ho-hum. So, although I expect over the next few weeks, we'll start to get a little bit more news pick up again as we approach the end of the year and the start of the January 1 release waves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The calm before the storm.
Yep, exactly. Lego Masters Academy is now open at the Lego House. So if you are visiting the Lego House in Billund, Denmark, you can go and sign up for the Lego Masters Academy. Grinch, you asked, what is the Lego Masters Academy? Great question. The Lego Masters Academy is a chance to actually build.
West, I know what the Lego Masters Academy is.
It's a chance to build with Lego professional designers in Billund, Denmark, in what looks like a Lego Masters style studio. But what I didn't know, because we covered this a few months ago when they announced it, we were kind of unsure of what this would look like. And now we have a better idea. They actually have 4 different levels of building, ranging from like friends and family with your kids building to like beginner, intermediate, and like professional level building or expert level building, if you will. Right now, only the beginner and intermediate level builds are available for people to sign up, but they intend to also have kind of that higher end and lower end build experience as well. And it's a chance, like I said, to go and build with Lego Masters there in Billund and to get either, feedback or learn. And it's actually more of like a educational experience than I think we originally sort of thought based off of the news release and kind of like how this would work, in practice. So it's kind of exciting to see and interesting and neat that Lego is putting that on. Unfortunately, only something that's available at the Lego House. So you have to, if you're here in the States, fly out to Denmark to go and participate in it. But if you are in Europe and you can get over there, it looks really fun. So,
Actually, no, I'm just kidding. I was keeping the bit going.
So our next bit of news is the Lego Icons Smeagol and Deagle Polybag gift with purchase has returned and will be available until September 24th. So that's exciting.
Smeagol and Deagle return.
I pulled an Anchorman and I read our notes exactly.
The returning.
So
Deagle's back from the dead. Time to get the ring.
Yeah. And then before we talk about that, because Grinch, I know you do want to speak to that, our last little bit of news is that the Brinkley Designer Program Series 6 box art has been revealed and looks pretty good. So Grinch, talk to me about this icon set.
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about it before, so I won't spend too long on it, but my curiosity is this an example of, did they reproduce the gift with purchase and they have more of it? Or did they not use it all, let it sat, and now are re-releasing it, sort of thing? They're just using the rest of that stock that they had that they didn't originally use back to spring.
Yeah.
So that's my question. Like,
they've done that.
What gives?
They've re-released some of these gift with purchases a few times in the past. We've seen that happen.
It's usually the ones that don't sell, right? Or
right,
you suspect don't sell.
So I'm curious if this is a result of the Shire set not selling well, although by all indications it did. So
I mean, I've seen a lot of photos of it, yeah.
It's hard to tell because we never know how many of these are produced. Well, we never know how many Lego sets of a specific type are produced, right? That's a number Lego knows. But especially with these poly bags, we never know how many are actually out there. And so, although probably easier to count in the grand scheme of things than the other way around, but still impossible to really, you can kind of get a guess, but
I just want to work for Lego and just get this data and then just be like, sorry guys, gotta go. Or just sit here and just read it. That'd be great.
Just got to go
Man.
podcast. Got to go talk to
Yep,
West.
gotta go. Sorry, you guys said I can't do a Lego podcast and work for Lego. So like,
It's not you guys, it's me,
Yeah.
actually.
yeah. It's I don't want to work for you.
Oh, dear.
That was from a great movie.
Getting a hold of that data would be fascinating because I'm sure there's some really interesting information. But
yeah, that'd be really interesting. God, we're such nerds. All right, West, why don't we talk about something a little bit more exciting and head over to our today's topic.
Today's topic.
So, West, it's the turn of the millennia. You just survived Y2K. Turns out the world didn't explode. And you and I were actually at the Washington, D.C. National Mall, and we saw a streaker run across the reflecting pool at the turn of the century. That's how we spent that.
millennia and century.
And millennia, turn of millennia, sorry. And yeah, I mean, what a time to be alive. Some other fun stuff that occurred in the year 2000. The TV show Survivor premiered for the first time. They're on season something ridiculous right now. The PlayStation 2 launched this year. And Britney Spears' Oops, I Did It Again sat atop the Billboard charts. So she was at an all-time peak in the music industry at that point, and we all know what happened after that. But specifically, when we talk about Lego, we've talked about the year of 1999 and how it was kind of the start of this modern era of Lego. And here we have a continuation of that with a lot of first. And it was really kind of the year that Lego grew up. And we see this continuation into modern Lego and even just some different pieces or elements, Lego and non-Lego, that kind of led to where we're at today with Lego. So my question for you, West, was the year 2000 the first, I would say, unofficial year of the AFOL for Lego?
You know, Grinch, I think it was. And I do want to talk to that. But before I do, you brought up something that I think we need to explain for our younger listeners, which
Britney
is
Spears was a pop singer icon. Oh, think Sabrina Carpenter. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's kind of a good analogy.
It's not a bad comparison. I think, yeah. No, I wanted to talk about the
crazy?
the Y2K bug. This was a fascinating time in human history.
When is it not?
Because people were legitimately afraid that as the century and millennia turned over, that computers all across the world would just shut down. This was like a legitimate fear. Fear. And the problem, or the kind of thought process behind it, was that computers that recognized 2-digit dates, so if they recognized the year 1999 as 99, right? Once that turned over to 2000, it would be 00, but it wouldn't know if it was 00 or if it was 1900 or 2000 or 1900, as an example. And so the prediction was like, these systems are just going to completely crap out. And I mean, people literally thought like the world was going to end. And I'm looking at a article in Britannica about it. And they literally are saying that like there was a lot of work actually done by software engineers to make sure that that didn't happen. And so they were actually actively patching software, racing against time before the turn of the century and millennia in order to actually fix this. We had a close family friend who actually took this threat of the Y2K bug a little more seriously than I think other people did, and was started to stockpile some extra candles and stuff because he was afraid the power would literally go out on us. So what a wild time to be alive, Grinch.
And it turns out he was right, and we're Yeah. Are we even real?
Yeah, that's the year the simulations. Oof.
The
Okay, let's
Matrix
get
also
back on.
came out right beforehand too, just to keep things super interesting.
Oh dear. All right, back on track. You asked a very important question, Grinch, and or proposed an important question, which was 2000 the first year of the AFOL? And I would say, without a doubt, yes. And here is my thesis for this. Right. In 2000, we started to see Lego take steps to introduce sets that were beyond the Technic line, which they had already done. And there were some Master Builder series that they had done before in
Model
1999.
team.
Yeah. But now they really started to ratchet this up, and specifically with themes that were like a little bit more mainstream than others. And so you see Lego really start to recognize the adult consumer within the Lego portfolio. Still not to the degree that we got eventually with Lego Icons now and kind of the modern Lego era. But this was certainly the start of it. So I would, I think this is a perfect point to just, throw your stick in the sand and go, this is the point where we can say post 2000, the AFOL is a consumer group that Lego is specifically targeting versus pre 2000. I think you could make an argument that it was maybe there to some extent, but not to the same extent as post.
Not as
2000.
intentional as,
Yeah.
and I would even argue that this wasn't super intentional. I mean, you remember our conversation with Shy last week where it was like, oh my gosh, you're an AFOL and you work at a Lego store. Like, I don't know if we want you to do that. But I mean, maybe a happy accident, right? Because this certainly has to be intentional to some regard. But if you look at how Lego was marketing some of these sets themselves, you could maybe argue that it was focused on an older teen than an adult, right? But looking at what they've done now with that lens, that future lens, it certainly lends itself to go back and say, this was maybe the first year that they really focused on
Yeah.
AFOLs.
I think it's fair to call it an inflection point of sort of focus and attention. I do want to call out that just because you were a fan of Lego, an adult fan of Lego before 2000, doesn't like that's not what we're talking about, right? We're not just saying like that's when the AFOL term was coined, or that's when pre this point you weren't an AFOL, right? It's just you were an AFOL of sets that were, and this might rub people the wrong way, but they were designed to be played with by children. And it's totally okay to engage in that hobby as an adult. But now we're seeing Lego build stuff sort of more explicitly for adults is kind of what we're getting at. So,
well, and what was also funny is the year 2000, because I knew I was going to ask you this question. I didn't put on our notes just to keep things spicy. The year 2000 was actually some of the first ever Lego conventions that were sponsored for AFOL. So the term adult fan of Lego was certainly around back then, but definitely more of an inflection point, kind of like you're talking about. There was the original establishment of Brick Fest was actually in 2000 as one of the first convention, actually the first convention for adult fans of Lego in the United States. So incidental, maybe not. So some of the reasons I said that is because when we go through the highlights here, what does this sound like to you? First ever UCS sets, TIE Interceptor and X-Wing. We've got advanced sculptures and models such as the giant minifigure Lego Mosaic set and the giant Statue of Liberty, which was the first sculpture ever from Lego. And we also got the first set made for stop motion filmmaking, which later became and was launched under the Lego Studio line. And making of a film is definitely something of a little bit of an older, teenager or young adult at that point, right? Especially back in 2000, before you had cameras on everything, you had to have a computer, etc. So those are some of the highlights on why I asked you the question of, is 2000 that first unofficial year of the AFOL? When I say that, I feel like we're talking about like the Lunar New Year over here, like the year of the AFOL was 2000, and followed by the year of the rat after that. But no, I just joke. Some other highlights from the year 2000: Lego launched Knight's Kingdom, again with named characters. We talked about it during our Rock Raiders episode. We talked about it during our Adventures episode. Named characters are starting to become a thing. Speaking of adventures, we had Dino Island. And, sir, do you know what license Lego got and featured a beloved mouse from?
Ooh, Rescuers Down Under.
I believe that's a Womperat. No, I'm just kidding.
AFOL Goes West.
It was Disney. So we had our first Mickey Mouse sets in the year 2000. So those are just some of the highlights of the year. Wes, why don't you go through some of the set details for us?
Yeah, so let's do some set details real quick. So the most valuable set in 2000 is set 3443, the Lego Mosaic, currently retailing for $2,600.
Well,
The highest
not
growth,
retailing, available on the secondary market.
yes, the highest growth of a set from this year is the one minifigure pack Rock Raiders #1, set 3347, and that has seen a 39,000% increase in price. This is the one with Chief, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
And then the largest 2000 Lego set is the set 3450 Statue of Liberty with 2,800 pieces, almost 2,900 pieces. And the most owned 2000 set 7144, the original Slave One. In this year, we had 19 themes, 40 sub themes, and 325 sets for sale. Retail for all of those sets, you'd be paying around $5,850. Right now, if you had all of them sealed, you could sell that for $34,000. Used, that's sitting around $15,000. So a pretty incredible increase there for those sets.
Yeah, and if you break down the annualized growth for a lot of these themes, and I believe this is just the average annual growth, is what I'm trying to say for our listeners. Rock Raiders is actually the highest. Now, Chief is probably an outlier there, right? It's probably dragging that up, but I thought that was super interesting because, of course, you do have the first Mickey Mouse set. You've got some of the first Star Wars sets, right? But Rock Raiders is on top at 11%, and Star Wars Mickey Mouse annual growth rate of around 7%. So that's super interesting to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned this before we started, but you were like, it's, kind of, you said at first you were like, it's kind of surprising to see, Star Wars maybe isn't a little higher. And then you were like, but, thinking back on it, right? Like, this is the second year that we've seen Star Wars on offer, and kind of a general sampling of the Star Wars sets from this era. We had the B-Wing, the A-Wing, the first Slave One. So you see kind of a return to some of the Empire Strikes Back series of sets. And they were fine. These were very boxy looking Star Wars sets at the time.
Dude, that Slave One is pretty bad.
Well, I was being generous.
They were certainly Lego sets.
we still liked them at the time. We didn't know any better. But
we got that Slave One. Oh, it's so funny because I remember that thing being like so accurate and just like oh, I could have never built something like this. Like, this is genius. And it's pretty pitiful. I think we got it. We had like a snow day. I think we went to a little toy store. And I remember we got it. But yeah, it was certainly a Lego set.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. No, to your point, right, Grinch? This was a very blocky set. It did leave quite a bit to be desired. So that is totally fair. But these were also kind of that first year of or second year of kind of the yellow faces that weren't really designed to look like the characters because Lego at the time, right? And this isn't a bad thing, was recycling as many faces as they could amongst all the different series. So even in the Star Wars sets, if you had somebody who wasn't a named character, they would have had potentially a face from like Rock Raiders or one of the other themes that Lego created. So that was kind of funny because looking back on it, like you're like, oh, I've seen this head before, and it's somebody from Aquanauts or whatever, and recycled into Star Wars. So
Wes, you got me giggling over here. It's been a long week. I'm going on vacation next week, and when you were describing Lego creating minifigures, reusing heads, I was just laughing to myself because I was like, could you imagine if that's how it like occurred in real life and you're at the doctor like in labor delivery and they're just like, all right, what heads do we got? We got these old Padme ones. Yeah, just that'll work. That'll be perfect. And what hair do you want to use? We got this top knot. Nope, that's too expensive. Let's do this one from the 80s. And
yeah,
that'd be a funny skit.
It certainly was interesting. So, I mean, other than that, right, we had some other really interesting sets this year. We already talked about it in a previous episode just this fall, but that's the year of Dino Island and Adventurers. Like we mentioned, we had some really interesting castle stuff. We had one of the things that stood out for me that was really exciting is actually this is the theme or the year that the Arctic sets came out. And Grinch, we collected the crap out of those Arctic sets. We loved those.
I think we had almost every single one of them.
Yeah, I think there was some of the bigger bases that we didn't have, but we did have quite a few of the smaller ones.
No, dude. Our mom went all out at Toys R Us and maybe it was Kmart. Remember Kmart? And we got the polar base. We had the polar base. Yeah, remember? Because we used to always rebuild on those base plates later. So we had quite a few of them.
Yeah. Oh, what a great year. Looking through some other stuff, we talked about Slizers or Throwbots, right? And then this was the year of Robo Riders kind of taking over in place of Throwbots. So that was kind of an interesting series. Kind of another flash pan and the flash in the pan and then done. But this was also the year that we had the first kind of Lego soccer series, which we also just absolutely loved. And boy, what a great year for Lego collecting. We played with that Lego soccer series so much. Now, listeners, if you're interested, we do have an episode about sports in Lego that came out around last year around the Olympics. And so if you're interested, please go back and take a listen. But I think you actually recreated the set after we talked about it, if I'm not mistaken, the soccer set.
Oh, yes. I got it all set up on my shelf.
That one still today is probably the best translation of like sports because you could kind of actually play it. You know what I mean?
No, not actually. We did. I mean, we played the crap. Like we played we played that system. It was great.
Yeah, that was really fun. So that was cool to see. There are just some other kind of things that stood out as I was looking through this as well. This was also the year of what was called exclusive minifigs. And it was like a 3 minifig pack. We already talked about the Rock Raider pack with Chief. But they had a 3 minifig pack that they started to sell. And this was really the precursor to what we would probably call the CMF series today. And it was a kind of a double stacked base plate piece with this weird kind of vertical slot in the back that you could place like a playing card. And the playing
Mm-hmm.
card had a background, and I believe it had information about the character if it was a named character on the front side of it. And it was kind of like a little diorama where you had the little stand, the character, and the background, the card behind it. And these were so cool. And we actually got them at one of the original, or Lego stores in the US weren't really a thing. And so in downtown Disney in Florida, they had a Lego store, which was really unique. And I remember seeing these. You and I saw these at that Lego store and bought them. We were very excited. I mean, just, very simple things like set 3342, Chewbacca and 2 biker scouts, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 battle droids and command officer. So this was not only maybe, a combination, think of CMF, but also your original battle packs to some extent. Now, not all of them were, just sort of generic troops, but they weren't like anything crazy either. So just a really fun year for Lego as you see them trying out all these different and new things, and clearly some exciting things to come. So
It takes me back to a different time in Lego. So I'm like looking at Darth Maul and Palpatine over here. They pretty much had a very similar robe printing, but could you imagine today if like the Star Wars community and Lego, if they came out with the Palpatine, Darth Maul, Darth Vader pack? This isn't even realistic. This is the episode 6 Palpatine with episode 5 Darth Vader with episode 1 Darth Maul. But no, and talking about nostalgic themes here, Scala. No, I'm just kidding. Scala though was kind of on its tail end, I feel like, at this point, which was of course Lego's attempt to compete with Barbie. But what is super nostalgic for me is maybe the first peak of Lego video games around this time. They kind of, they had like Lego Racers, Alpha Team. They had a few different games, Lego Island. I think Lego Island was before this, but it might have been Lego Island 2, or at least on Game Boy. It was like the Game Boy Color era of games came out this year. And then there was a little bit of a delay or stall or just dark period of Lego games, and then of course they came out with Lego Star Wars a few years after this, and I'd say a whole other generation of Lego gaming at that point, but definitely wanted to mention the Lego games.
Yeah, great series.
And so what another thing that I thought was really interesting as we were going through some of the data is, you mentioned it was 325 sets, but just kind of taking a step back and looking at what the sets are, because we've talked so much on the channel about how there's just so much Lego coming out. And there's always been a lot of Lego that comes out. We've talked through the data. Earlier 2000s, it was like 300 sets, and it kind of jumps up to 500, and then it hovers around the 700 to 800 sets a year range. That's not going up. Now we're talking, there's so many sets that we just want to buy. They're doing a lot better job of, I guess, marketing them, or doing one-offs versus just full suites of 5 to 10 sets. But in this year, in 2000, of the 325, 71 of them were just bulk brick. Another 38 of them were Duplo. So that's already a third of the sets that were on the shelf this year didn't really even resonate with us, right? And then on top of that, you had gear, you had books, right? You had your random kind of seasonal ones, you had your Mickey Mouse, which was more Duplo focused, and you're starting to kind of see where I'm going with this. 2/5 to a half of these sets weren't really designed for us at all, right? So the whole collecting aspect of getting all the sets, or at least experiencing all the themes in some capacity, was very obtainable, right?
Yeah. And so just to put it into reference, when you said bulk brick, right? They're not talking about like, buying a Lego creator set. Literally, it's just bulk brick of what you would think of as like pick a brick today. So, for
Yeah.
example, set 3496 is a 2x2 roof tiles steeped slope red. That is a theme is bulk brick. Year is 2000. Retails for $8. Number of pieces 100 pieces. That is just 100 red sloped 2x2s that you can just go buy, and that was
And
what you were able to go buy.
and you said it retailed for $2?
$8.
$8. I was about to say, oh my gosh, price to part ratio on that is actually 12 cents. So,
Yeah.
What are you trying to say, West?
I'm not. You can draw whatever conclusion you'd like to from that. What I'm just saying is, what a wild time where that's what we were able to buy as like bulk.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got to talk to you. Talked about Lego sports, and I just picked one of these up this past year. The Lego Tour de France. I guess it wasn't officially Tour de France. It was a town set, which was pre-Lego City. But the Telecom Race Cyclist.
Yeah.
This is one of the last times I think that they did stickers for torsos.
Mm-hmm.
Because back originally, and it wasn't all the torsos for some reason. It was, I guess they did it with the bus for Lego Sports as well, where you could put the different jersey numbers and stuff on your
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
But and what's funny, like, so I'm
But
looking at
same
this
year,
one. I'm looking
right?
at, yeah, no, same year. So this is set 1197 Telecom Race Cyclist and Television Motorbike. Again, it wasn't the Tour de France, but like it's the Tour de France. They've got the torso of the biker is a sticker, but then the torsos of the cameramen are just regular torso, printed torsos like you'd expect. So kind of interesting. They've got a magenta colored bike here too, which is super cool. And they actually had 3 Team Telecom sets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 4 Team Telecom sets from back in the day. One of them is literally just a telecom battle pack, if you would, of
We got a bunch of
4
cyclists.
bicyclists. I guess it's 5 cyclists total with matching bike, and then you've got somebody with the yellow jersey and somebody with the green jersey, and then the award stand. So just kind of a different set. You don't see sport in Lego often. We don't like to play sports. We don't like to go outside, but when you do, it certainly turns some heads.
Yeah. And a fun one because like we'll talk about this a little bit later in our episode with some of our comments that we got from last week and some ongoing discussion on Lego ideas, and something right now where like you could easily redo like a Tour de France in like the modern Lego City system, and it would totally make sense. And from like a Lego perspective, like you remember when the NFL had like a whole get off the couch kind of campaign, and like I don't know, like it just seems like something that you would totally expect from like a modern kind of just program. So I could totally see this being revisited at some point, and it's so easy.
Yeah, it really is too. And I mean, it's funny because that bike still exists today.
Yeah.
Right? It's a great mold. It was one that I really wanted to add to my collection. I also, it's funny to see it in person because it's a guy, a bicyclist with a bicycle, and essentially it's a poly bag, right? There's 5 pieces. He's got a hat, a torso, and a bike. And I guess it's 5 pieces plus a minifigure, so whatever that is. But I digress. It's in a box. It's in a tiny little box, but it would certainly be a poly bag, right? But It's a box. It's it's like it's like 2 inch by 2 inch box, which I just think is really funny because you just don't see that anymore in today's day and age. Essentially about the size of a collectible minifigures box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that also really caught my eye, West, while we were going through the data, is sets by release month.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but we've been doing the news ever since we've been doing this podcast, and it just seems like there's either a reveal or a release wave right around the corner, and it seems like we just get new sets every month at this point, right? We had
Right.
some sets come out September 1st. We're anticipating some in October. Just had a big August wave, right? When
Yeah.
you look back at the 2000, what do you notice?
We're definitely, to your point, right? It just feels like we're constantly sitting in between like a review period or like a wave of set releases. So it's just really common to hear from or, to see something being announced, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of comes in these waves. But in the year 2000, what really stands out is like a majority. And when I say majority, it looks based off of the chart that we have to be almost 80% of the sets are all just released in January. And then we have
Mm-hmm.
a wave in April and June and August, and that's it. And certainly no November or December wave. So the holiday season, there was nothing kind of done to preempt the holiday or lead up to it, which is really fascinating. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean there's 4 months that had no sets, and you might as well call 3 other ones that had no I mean they might have had one set, right? Like
yeah,
you really have January, and then April and June and August have like maybe 10 or 20 sets
hmm
maximum, right?
hmm
If you go and look at 2004's release set by month, there is not a month that doesn't have multiple sets coming out in it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's almost half as many sets coming out in June as there are in January, and almost half as many coming out in March, May, August, and a quarter of that September, October, and February, April. I mean, every single month has something coming out. So certainly just kind of a different time. People describe the news cycle as being 24/7 with social media, right? The Lego is releasing 24/7 nowadays, whereas before it certainly was more of a traditional sort of retail drop standpoint, right?
yeah. And to your point, right? Like now we have kind of official and sometimes unofficial waves, right? We always have a
Uh-huh.
January release wave. We generally get a March release wave. Then we get a May wave, right? And then there's usually kind of the summer waves. That's like a June, July, depending. We've seen it split, which is kind of weird, or June in Europe, but August in like the United States. There's generally like an August wave. Then we get a whole September wave to kind of preempt the holiday season. And then we kind of start that cycle back over again in January with the January one waves. So
Mm-hmm. So do you know what else happened in the year 2000?
uh outside of Lego or within the context of Lego?
If I said outside of Lego, where would you go with that?
That's I don't know. I was in
Oh, okay.
fourth grade in the year 2000, so fourth and fifth, fourth grade. So, yeah, I don't know where I'd be going with that one.
I was in kindergarten. But no, so Sand Red,
Okay.
RIP,
Yeah.
Sand Blue, and Sand Green were first introduced around this time, but they really solidified themselves this year with the Statue of Liberty. I mean, practically invented the color of sand green, right? It's just you can't do a Statue of Liberty without it.
It would be
Sand
difficult.
blue was introduced with some Star Wars sets, and then sand red as well. I believe sand red and sand purple were introduced with Mars mission, but the other sands were introduced this year. So certainly the most iconic of them all being sand green.
Yeah, of all of them, right? I mean, I think sand red is notorious because it's definitely one of those colors where we're like, why can't we have this back? Right? But sand blue and sand green are just wonderful colors to see in Lego. And you mentioned not necessarily colors so much, but you mentioned last episode in our interview with Shy, and I think this is a really interesting discussion, right? Of like the original modular series are like looking at a 1080p screen, and the new modular series are looking at like a 4K Ultra HD 60 hertz plus monitor or television, and it's just so much different. And this is part of why that is the way that it is, which is like getting these earthier tones, right? I know things like the new Tudor Corner has more darks than it does sands necessarily, but features dark red and those kind of colors, dark green, right? It's getting away from that kind of very neutral color palette of red, blue, green, yellow, right? It's now we're starting to see variations on those colors. They're more muted, maybe more realistic, right? Something that we could see in the real world. And now Lego is starting to emulate real life a lot more than it has before. And this is kind of one of those key features that allows people to build very realistic looking structures and buildings and stuff like that. So I think this is a hugely important piece to kind of the larger Lego puzzle here.
Yeah, and we've talked about how Lego works on a kind of 3 to 4 year product and development cycle, right? So certainly,
To the best of our knowledge, yes.
yeah, and I'm hoping to find a primary source for that, but yes, from what I can tell from internet research as well, it is a 3 to 4 year cycle, and we're not the first to certainly say that either. We've talked to other people that are maybe a little bit more in tune with Lego, like has spoken to people that have also said that. So while I can't confirm it, it's strongly suggested. And it came 4 years after this was the re-release or reformulated grays, as well as browns for that matter. But the infamous color change from the light gray to the light bluish gray, or as Lego has officially called it, light stone gray.
Ooh.
And then the dark gray to the dark bluish gray, which was mostly because of stuff like being more accurate for Star Wars and stuff like that. But again, to your point, a more realistic and muted color, certainly inspired by something like these sand greens and these sand colors in Lego.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you gotta also talk about this year with parts, right? We had a movie camera, we had UCS plates, right? So a larger plate, specialized parts like the cockpit for the X-wing, right? You start to see some of those things here. We talked all about adventurers in a few episodes ago, so go check that one out. But certainly worth mentioning as far as new elements and parts go. Dino Island introduced the first molded dinosaurs this year for Lego, so that's awesome. And then more sort of development of armored pieces, helmets, etc., weapons for Knight's Gears with Knight's Kingdom.
Yeah, and these pieces were, this is a really big deal for Lego because Lego's really starting to specialize. And, as was covered in the Lego documentary, that was featured on HBO. And for those who are familiar with sort of the corporate history of Lego, right, this is one of the years right before Lego kind of really hits rock bottom. And you're really seeing Lego experiment with a lot of different things. And Grinch, you'd mentioned, this is kind of the end of Scala. We had those buildable Technic figures that were around for a while. They were kind of like larger minifigures. There was just kind of a lot of goofy stuff going on. And to include some really big, I mean, that Lego film, you were literally buying a camera from Lego, right? Which, like, just for a second, talk about how wild it is in 2025 to think that you were buying like some sort of camera. Who knows where they sourced it from? Certainly they weren't making cameras themselves, right? Or they licensed it through somebody. And that was part of a Lego set. Like, it's just wild. These days, with a cell phone, right? Like, everyone has a built-in movie camera. Like, that wasn't what it was like in 2000. And so it was like a very novel thing to have your own camera that was like Lego system compatible and designed to be used for like stop motion video, right? So
Right.
just a wild set of years. And again, right, like Lego is investing in a lot of different things, and ultimately kind of in its own corporate history stretches itself out too much, and we start to see and we have record of the fact that this is kind of, like I said, this inflection point for Lego 2, where they realize that, like, something's not working, and they kind of go back to the drawing board and start to slim down their process, and start to consolidate a lot and get rid of some of those extraneous projects they were working on and really focus on the core brand again. And as you've kind of mentioned, and spoiler alert for anyone who's not aware of this history, but it was actually Bionicle that really helped save Lego, ironically. Not even the theme that you would think, Star Wars, right? So
yeah, and it's kind of sad to look at this year because what comes next, right?
yeah, absolutely.
2001. No, that they ultimately almost go bankrupt, and this was really, like you said earlier, an inflection point for Lego. And to confirm, it was the last year of Scala. So there's that.
Nice.
We
Yeah.
also had Lego Baby, which was always interesting because they had Duplo and Lego Baby, and Duplo was 2 to like 6 years old. Baby was 2, or I guess it was 18 months to 2 years old type of deal. So it
Very
was
tight age
yeah, it
group there
was.
to market to.
I think it was like a 2-year age group or something like that. Whereas it was pre-Duplo, but Duplo also was for like 2-year-olds. So it was interesting, to say the least.
Which now that I have a 2.5-year-old, right? Like, Duplo is very much a part of our lives, but Duplo is such a weird range because if you go to the Lego store, they will say like, hey, this one's for, kids who are 1. They don't really say under 1, right? So they're usually 1 and up. And then they'll be very clear to be like, this is 1.5 and up or 2 and up for Duplos. And as you go higher, you're going to start to see smaller pieces. I bought my daughter a Cars set the other day. It was a little garage. That was kind of what started off on our Cars Duplo adventure. And it had a little wrench piece in it, right? Like, it's not a tiny Lego piece you could choke on, but it's still a lot smaller than I think people might be comfortable with, having around a 1-year-old, for example. So Duplo now has kind of just incorporated all of that into its own line. And there are sort of various sub stages within the Duplo line that people need to be aware of. But yeah, I mean, there was a set from Duplo in the early years. It was a big dump truck, and it wasn't even like Duplo compatible. It was set number 2225 heavy loader, and it's this just big plastic dump truck that you put Duplo in the back of. But I mean, the thing is the size of what you would just buy off the shelf from like Fisher Price or something, or Tonka or whatever, right? It's not really a Lego set per se. It's just a giant plastic toy.
and then looking at the baby stuff, which I guess is marketed 0 to 2 years, is definitely more of your chewies and rattlers and stuff like that. So you start to live in a world where Lego's doing less of this and more of a system-based item, right?
Right. Which is ironical. It's ironic that Bionicle is the thing that brings Lego
Ironical.
back, because
Right.
Bionicle is very much like a Technic-based thing, and kind of
Right.
exists. I mean, we never really have. We probably need to do an episode exploring the impact of Bionicle, but in and of itself, building on things from like Throwbots and Slicers and Robo Riders, but it had its own very distinct visual language that even since then hasn't really been emulated or reused in a big way, right?
Mhm.
And so, ironically, the thing that saves Lego isn't
Ironical.
it's ironical isn't the thing that isn't like I mean, you're right. They did return to the system, but it wasn't the system that saved Lego. It was Bionicle that saved Lego. So
It's ironical.
it's ironical.
I do think I'm going to trigger some people that the whole like Bionicle saved Lego is a little overblown. It's more of like a catchy clickbaity headline than anything. It's not untrue, but I think it's a lot more complicated than that. But
Yeah. Maybe that is
that is a
something.
story for another day.
Yeah, we need to dig into. Maybe
Yes.
it's more of like a you take the side that they don't, and then I take the side that they do, and we try to research.
Are you saying I can be devil's advocate?
I'm not.
Because if you ask my wife, that's my favorite thing to do.
What I'm definitely not suggesting is we
To
debate.
play devil's
but
advocate, though, if you ask me, no, I'm just kidding. What were you saying, Wes?
I was gonna say what I'm definitely not suggesting is we don't debate, and I'm. But I am
Definitely
suggesting.
not suggesting that we don't debate. So we are debating.
You know what? I don't even know anymore. Point is,
What are we doing here?
oh dear. Maybe like a stance. I'm living in an academic world at the moment, so you argue your thesis, I'll argue mine, and we can defend them.
I would like to propose that we table this discussion. I'm just kidding. I'm just jargoning over here. Yeah, let's do it. It's our Bionicle is already on the list, so we'll have to noodle over it, give it some thought, and we'll also talk about the year 2001 at some point, which Bionicle will certainly be featured in. But I wanted to leave us with one thing, Wes. Did you have any closing thoughts before we move on?
No, other than just to say that looking through these sets again as we're talking, right? And first and foremost, for anyone listening who's interested to get to know where we get our data from, we're referencing the Brick Economy page, which allows you to sort by year. It allows you to sort by theme. So it's a very powerful tool set. It gives you an opportunity to really look at a lot of Lego data across whatever sort of connective, filter you would like to apply. So in this case, we literally just searched Lego sets, released in 2000, and Brick Economy pops up. Wonderful website for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and we highly recommend people check that out. But just looking through the sets on Brick Economy, this was such a wonderful year for Lego. I really just got this huge wave of nostalgia looking back at like the Arctic sets, specifically the Star Wars sets that came out. This was some really fun sets for us, and really formative sets for us as well. Some of the Star Wars stuff, right? We got kind of wave 2 of episode 1, the original, like I said before, the A-Wing, right? This is the Trade Federation AAT, just some wonderful sets. So anyways, a really great year for Lego, Grinch.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about the Star Wars just because we've talked about a few episodes, but let's chat a little bit about Star Wars, because we got the original Millennium Falcon, which dare I say does not look very good.
How dare
Oh, dude. Okay, we got to make a meme. Like, The guy versus the guy she told you not to worry about, sort of me. Like, this, this is it. This is you. And then there's the UCS one. Oh, classic. But no, I it's something we don't really see today, but we have more recently seen a system version of is like the buildable battle droid, right? But this is out of Technic. And I remember you had that and actually folded up, right? And just like in the movie where it kind of stands up or unfolds, right?
Yeah,
It
if
could
you
do that.
have, I think we still have it assembled. It's in our our Lego collection is in, well, I won't say where it is. It's currently in an undisclosed location. But we have our old
extra storage, building number 1, unit number 1197.
Right. The passcode for the gate is 3279.
Pasadena, California.
Yeah. It's still assembled though, is what I'm getting at. And so it's literally in the bag, still there. I think the rubber bands are pretty worn out. But yeah, literally this battle droid in Technic could fold up, crunch himself up into a ball. You press the button on his back, which was also kind of the chest plate on his front, and his head would pop up, his legs would fold down, and his arms kind of were always in like a movable pose. But then you had one geared piece on the back, and that would take the one arm and it would pull the gun off of his back and then bring it forward. And he was kind of in like a, action pose. A very cool set, just like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, and I think I ended up recoloring him to kind of match Star Wars Battlefront at one point. So,
well, and they gave you an option too, right? You could do the commando or the pilot from one. Yeah.
I think they even gave you red pieces too. So the yellow, red, and blue pieces, if I'm not mistaken. But there was at least blue and yellow and then I think tan as well, kind of a stock battle droid.
But we got a B-Wing, right? We got the first B-Wing. Of course, we got a remake of the B-Wing in 2006, and we really have not gotten many B-Wings before then, or since then, right?
No,
I mean, there's the
probably
UCS, but like that's got to be it.
Arguably an underdone set.
Underappreciated, yeah. I really like the B-Wing personally.
It just doesn't get a ton of screen time, which I think is kind of the downfall with it.
Yeah, dude,
right?
But like neither does Boba Fett, and he's got his whole series now.
That's fair enough.
The dude was literally just a background character in like he had like 5 seconds of screen time, and like everybody became obsessed with him.
Yeah, it was really the expanded universe that did that for us. So
yeah. But one thing I think that's certainly worth noting, 2 things for Star Wars, that is the instructions or the old Lego Star Wars logo is just super nostalgic for me. It just says Star Wars, of course, and then it has the Lego-fied versions of the characters. I just love that old logo from back in the day. And then the other thing worth mentioning is the instructions. When you'd open them, there was a little, it was tiny too. What was maybe a 1/2 inch by a 1/4 inch tall image of the scene from the movie that it was portraying. So as you built the set, the MTT, for example, would start with the plains of Naboo, and then it would have just a series of stills from the Battle of Naboo Plains, for example. A nice little touch, tiny little image, but some fun as you were kind of building through the set. They stopped doing that. They never really ever did that outside of this and the first couple waves here of Star Wars, which was super interesting in my opinion. Not super necessary, but one of those ways they kind of were trying to enhance the building experience early on. And one thing that we've not seen ever since.
Grinch, you're bringing me back. You're bringing me back.
I know. Sorry, man. And then I think lastly on the Star Wars topic, these UCS sets, dude. You got the, what are the Ultimate Collector series, of course, and you've got the X-Wing that's got green greebling on it, and just not great sets, huh? Not great sets.
It was so funny to see the colors that they used in these Star Wars series of just, I don't want to like fault Lego, right? Because like they were doing kind of what they could at the time, and nobody's perfect on the first release, but like the TIE fighters being blue was just such a weird thing for many years, right? Incorporating that color scheme, and yeah, just like I don't know where they got the colors for that UCS X-Wing, but like I mean it's fine. It's just funny. Cracks me up.
It's something. And then also there was the like you said, the TIE Interceptor was the UCS TIE Interceptor blue as well?
Yes, yeah, looking at that one, it still had blue on the outside of it. Now
Yeah, it did, right? The
the
accent color.
sets had it too. So like,
Right,
and for
right.
many
I
years
didn't realize the
beyond
UCS
this,
did.
yeah,
Yeah, which was, I again don't know where they got that from, but an important year, I guess, for color with the sand greens and a shift towards a more realistic color palette. And I think it's certainly worth noting that the box of the UCS was in black and white. So these
oh,
were pleasant surprises that people got when they took them home and built them for the first time. The, you know, purely dark gray and light gray X-Wing with a green accent and red brick, and then the, you know, TIE Interceptor that had the blue accents all over it was certainly a surprise for I think many as they built them.
yeah. But you know what? People really didn't complain back then, and I think part of it was we didn't know any better. But like
Oh,
the other
yeah,
part of it was like, we were getting Lego Star Wars for the first time. Like, what was there to complain about?
yeah. No, people were just excited.
Yeah.
Simpler time, simpler
Yes.
time. So West, I said I had a closing thought before we moved on, and that is really, Lego 2000 and Lego was a bridge year, right? A lot of it technique wise, stylistically with how they built, just like we were talking just now with the X-Wing and the TIE Interceptor, was still rooted in the 90s. But the modern DNA of Lego started to show here with creating UCS sets, story driven themes like we've talked about many a times. Really, what we talked about is like the first foray into some, or one of the first forays into adult oriented themes and experimental products as well that did not necessarily do too great. So, a continuation of 1999 in a way that was holding on to the good old days for dear life, but also trying to change. So interesting time for Lego for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't we head over to our brick mail?
Let's do it.
Brick mail.
All right, so up first we have our brick mail from Rob Walker, a longtime listener and writer in of the show. Thank you as always, Rob, for writing in. He says, as always, I'm continuing to enjoy the podcast a great deal. I was out of the country almost all of August, and I had the opportunity to binge listen to the episodes I missed while I was gone. Great fun, total immersion, and I wanted to touch on two topics. The whole gift with purchase process is challenging. I do collect Harry Potter, and I'm trying to build the complete and most recent version of Hogwarts, much of which has not been released yet. To get the room requirement, I purchased Hogsmeade on September 1st, the first day it was available. I probably did not definitely would have purchased that set. I really felt manipulated by Lego. As one of your listeners mentioned, I could have gotten it with any Harry Potter purchase over $130, but I didn't have any other sets I wanted. Some of the gift with purchases are great, i.e. Fell Beast, Jane Austen, but I agree that is simply a way to bump up sales early in the month. Based on their financial reports for this year so far, their marketing strategy is working. Adventures, what a great series. As I was listening to this podcast, I kept thinking to myself, I wish I had purchased some more of these sets. Well, after I listened to you guys, I checked my brick set inventory and I actually own 5 of them. Island Hopper, Mummy's Tomb, Sphinx Secret Surprise, Amazon Ancient Ruins, and the Temple of Anubis. I had forgotten about them because most of them have never been opened or built. That ties into your podcast on Lego as an investment. To make a profit, I have to be willing to sell that, and I'm not sure that I am. I would love to see them produce more sets in the series. Thank you for motivating me to check my inventory. Well, I believe they call that a finder's fee, Rob. No.
Wow.
I am just
Don't
kidding.
open them.
That is awesome. I mean, look, if you can't sell them because you don't want to get rid of them, you might as well open them.
I mean, it's fair. That's fair.
Right? I mean, that's my personal belief. But no, Rob, thanks for writing in, touching on your first part of your comment here. I hope you had fun traveling out of the country. What a great time to get out of the country, and for all of August sounds awesome. And the gift with purchase challenges definitely exist. And to your point, I didn't even think about that really. It is only $130 for a Harry Potter purchase or more. If you're a Harry Potter collector and an avid Harry Potter collector, you probably have all the Harry Potter sets you want. So, you are maybe getting that Hogsmeade, right? Not, and you're not forced, right? But it's if you got everything you want, it's either buy a duplicate or buy the big new expensive thing that maybe you weren't going to get. So, well, it's not requiring you to buy it. It's as
really
close to it as you can be without, right? Yeah. The Jane Austen's great. I actually wanted to get multiple of those myself and was really hoping that it would be cheap on the secondary market because I was like, the Jane Goodall one still like $20-$40. The Charles Dickens ones, you can still find that for $20. And for some reason, this one is just super popular. And I was at when I was at Brick Fair, it literally like I bought one for $50, and then I was just kind of keeping my eye on it, and people had them for like $90. So I went back and I bought the other one for $50 because the store had two of them. And those were some good ones. And then the Adventures, that's awesome that you own those sets and build them if you want to. Either way, enjoy them. But yeah, good call out on the investment part. In order to make a profit, you also have to sell it. So it's, it's like the South Park episode of the theoretical money from YouTube back in the day where they're all getting their theoretical YouTube internet money and it doesn't really exist. That's obviously different now, but great episode of South Park. Also, great point here of, yes, you actually have to sell it in order to make the profit. So there's that giant caveat and importantness.
I think our friend Brick Quest would agree.
Yeah.
And best not to be sentimental if you're trying to be a Lego investor.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, Grinch, thank you for recapping that. And Docman, thanks for writing in. We always appreciate what you have to say and your engagement with the podcast. Our next series of comments, kind of a shotgun series of comments that we're going to share. First is a comment from Scarecrow Man. This is in response to our Lego Ideas episode, and he responded to that one. We featured it on the episode last week, and he responded back to us this week and says, guys, Lego needs to get back to their roots. This overindulgence in other media's IP is sending them the wrong direction. And Scarecrow Man, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't know if we have the data to prove it, right? I think it's more of a hunch at this point that I don't know if this is sustainable in the long run for Lego as
Yeah.
a brand, right? They're kind of hollowing out the core Lego brand. At the same time, too, they're selling more sets than ever before. So like, it's hard to argue with this formula at the moment, but as we've talked about it for the last few episodes, I mean, we even talked about it today, right? Like with the telecom set, it'd be so easy for them to re-release a town set, based around the Tour de France, right? And the way that they've done like National Geographic with the undersea explorers and stuff, and NASA with the Artemis and the space series. There's other sort of ways, and I get that those are all licensed to some extent, right? But there's sort of like secondary licenses, which are like lending credibility to the theme or the wave, not necessarily, building the wave after one specific thing. So anyways, that would be my take. I think there's a lot there, but Grinch, any thoughts on that?
A Scarecrow Man, I've got a recommendation for you if you'll listen. Spend some time in the mock building community and go to some Lego conventions, because the one thing that always surprises me is there's a ton of IP there, don't get me wrong. And it's usually the big giant things that people make are usually IP based, but there's a lot of non-IP there too. And I love seeing people's mocks that they put together of something totally original, because you just look at it and you're like, how could I think of, like, I could never think of the space dude on a purple planet with blue trees in this random space vehicle. Like, this is truly impressive to me. And when you see stuff like that, it really makes you appreciate it. So there's a lot of, if you're not enjoying the sets that Lego's currently releasing, there's a ton of other ways that you can partake in a non IP focused Lego experience, whether through mock building, something like the Bricklink Designer Program. So, while I don't disagree with you that they are kind of overindulgent on other IP, there are certainly some kind of niches in different areas of the Lego building experience that you can lean into and partake in to kind of get that experience that I think you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to your point, Grinch, right? Like, you can always just build yourself, right? Like, and get away from some of the licensed stuff. But I don't know. I
Yeah,
do
check out
think,
check out Rebrickable.
yeah,
Go support some builders on there. I mean, you could find a couple instructions for $3, right? And build some really cool. I mean, you also have to have the pieces, but you could build some cool, non-licensed stuff up there that's completely original too. So there, and that doesn't solve your issue. I totally understand that. I'm not saying it does, but there are other things out there too.
yeah, absolutely. All right. So for our next series of brick mails, we're just gonna kind of knock them out real quick. These are all in response to our episode last week with Shy Time, which Grinch, I really enjoyed doing. That was a lot of fun talking with him and learning his background and story, and kind of hearing from an elder, I wouldn't call him influencer, but ambassador in the Lego community, right? Both literally and figuratively. So that was really cool. So at Half Plate Gaps wrote in and said, "Great interview. Thanks to Shy for opening up." Lego loving lady wrote in, "Really enjoyed this interview. Thank you, Shy, for being so transparent. I really believe Lego is therapy." And then TMX debut said, "Since you mentioned him quite a bit, it might be worth learning how to pronounce Tiago's name." And Grinch, I think he was speaking to you on that one. So
I don't think so, sir.
well, TMX debut. I appreciate you calling that out, and certainly it's not a name that is common here in the United States, and so it's not one that we normally pronounce within kind of our anticipated vernacular. But I recognize that we may not be, specifically me, might not be pronouncing that correctly. So I did look it up. Tiago is, I believe, the correct pronunciation there. And we meant no offense. Certainly, we are big fans of his. And I think I even added an IO at the end on some of the past pronunciations I threw out there. So
It's like studio or stud.io. You know, you can say it one way or another, right?
I don't think that's how names work.
Oh,
I think there's generally an accepted pronunciation. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. Love to hear any additional feedback on the show, though. So, but thank you for reminding us or letting us know that was incorrect.
And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLsWelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya.